You walk into a moment thinking you're ready. You have the plan, the desire, the effort, the late nights, and the heartache to prove it. You put in the prayers, the work and the hope, but suddenly the door closes. The call never comes. The opportunity collapses. And what you're left with is not clarity, not peace, but confusion. You look around and whisper to yourself, why me? Why now? Why this? And it's in that very whisper that the truth begins to unfold. Because what you think is rejection is sometimes the greatest redirection your life will ever witness. See, most people don't recognize how divine blockages are. We've been trained to see delay as failure, denial as punishment, and silence as abandonment. But not everything that's paused is broken. Not everything that stops was meant to move forward. In fact, some of the best things that will ever happen to you will begin with something being forcefully taken away, not to hurt you, but to protect you from a road you didn't see was laced with harm. Blockages are not the absence of blessing. They are often its greatest manifestation. There are moments when you're denied what you were so sure was yours, and in that denial you question your worth. But this life is not a vending machine where you insert effort and receive guaranteed success. This life is a sacred test, and sometimes the highest form of mercy is an unanswered prayer. Sometimes the pain that cracks your plans is saving you from a future that would have shattered your peace. You don't see the full picture, not yet. You don't see the person who would have betrayed you 5 months in. You don't see the hidden collapse of that business that you thought would be your breakthrough. You don't see the version of you that would have been consumed by the very thing you were crying to have. So instead of mourning the door that closed, maybe it's time to bless it. Because it didn't close on you, it closed for you. It's hard to accept that sometimes the pain is the teacher, that heartbreak shapes souls, that failures cultivate depth, that losing something makes space for something better, something aligned, something purer, something that fits without forcing. But this only becomes visible with time, with silence, with reflection, and that's the hidden miracle behind every blockage. It slows you down enough to face yourself. It humbles your ego. It empties your pride. It forces your soul to kneel and finally ask, what is this really trying to teach me? If you study nature, you'll find that before the seed becomes a tree, it disappears beneath the soil. It's hidden, unseen, surrounded by darkness. And in that isolation, the real growth begins. No one claps for the roots. No one celebrates the stillness. But that doesn't mean life has stopped. Likewise, your blockages are not the end of the road. They are the root phase, the soul phase, the realignment that must occur before expansion can safely happen. And if you're spiritually aware, you'll know something even deeper. Sometimes you're blocked not because you're unworthy, but because you're overqualified for the space you were trying to fit in. That door didn't shut because you weren't enough. It shut because it wasn't big enough to hold the magnitude of who you're becoming. And if you forced it open, you'd shrink yourself just to stay inside. Divine wisdom never lets that happen. You need to understand something else. Not all motion is forward. Not all movement is progress. You could be running 100 miles in the wrong direction, and life will love you enough to bring you to a standstill, to save you from wasting more time chasing illusions. Misfortune isn't always punishment. Sometimes it's an invitation to clarity, a divine message that says, you've gone far enough on this path, turn around, something better is calling. So the next time you hit a wall, don't break down, don't curse the sky, don't spiral into the lie that you've been forgotten. You haven't. You're being watched more closely than ever. When the student is being tested, the teacher is always silent, and in that silence, in that sacred space of not knowing, you're given the choice to either collapse or surrender. One path leads to self-pity, the other leads to transformation. There's strength in bowing your head and saying, I don't know why this is happening, but I trust that there's wisdom beyond my understanding. That trust isn't weakness, it's the ultimate power, because it turns misfortune into medicine. It turns closed doors into lessons. It turns waiting rooms into training grounds. And remember, what's meant for you won't just open, it will call you by name. You won't need to beg for it, chase it, manipulate your way into it. It will come with ease, not because it's simple, but because it's aligned. It will grow you, not break you. It will challenge you without crushing you. Until then, embrace the blocks. They are not your enemy. They are the sacred pauses that keep your soul in check. So breathe, step back, say thank you even when it hurts, because sometimes what feels like a detour is actually the road, and every time you were blocked you weren't being punished, you were being protected, positioned and prepared. Misfortune only wins when you don't recognize its disguise, but if you look deeper, you'll realize the blockage was the blessing all along. When misfortune strikes, most people turn outward, blaming fate, circumstances or even God, but rarely do they turn inward. Rarely do they pause and ask themselves, what am I telling myself right now? What is the story playing in my head? Because in truth the real battlefield is not out there. It's in here. The mind, the voice that never sleeps, the silent narrator that either lifts you from the ashes, or buries you under the weight of your own beliefs. When you're blocked, delayed or hit by hardship, your response isn't dictated by the event, it's dictated by how you speak to yourself about the event, and in that space your mind becomes either a prison or a prayer room. Most people don't realize the power of self-talk. They walk through life constantly narrating their own downfall. This always happens to me. I'm cursed. I'll never catch a break. Do you know what that does? It programs your mind to expect pain. It trains your nervous system to prepare for failure. It poisons your spirit before the world even has a chance to attack you. What starts as a thought becomes a belief. What becomes a belief becomes your reality. And then you sit there, asking why nothing is changing, when all along the prison was built by your own words. But here's the miracle. You have the key. At any moment you can flip the script. You can switch the soundtrack. You can stop asking, why me? And start asking, what is this teaching me? You can stop telling yourself that you're broken, and start reminding yourself that you're being rebuilt. Because when you change your inner language, you change your outer world. The voice inside you is the most powerful coach, the deepest enemy, the quietest healer. It all depends on what you choose to make it. See, the heart hears what the mind repeats. If you keep replaying thoughts of despair, the heart closes. If you speak faith, even when your eyes can't see the way, the heart begins to open again. That's why in the darkest storms, it is your words that become your compass, not your circumstances, not your fears, not the opinions of others, just your words. That is where your power lies. People think strength is about holding on, but real strength is in surrendering the toxic narratives we've been fed for years. Stories like I'm unlucky, I'm not enough, it's too late. These aren't facts. They're beliefs you've repeated so many times they feel real, and in moments of hardship, they roar the loudest. That's why silence is necessary, not the kind of silence where you avoid your pain, but the kind of silence where you hear your soul, where you allow your thoughts to float to the surface, and instead of reacting you respond. You gently replace fear with remembrance, replace worry with presence, and turn complaints into quiet gratitude. There's a sacred moment in every hardship when you get to choose, do I drown in my story, or do I rise in my faith? Because even when nothing around you is going right, you can still whisper, I believe something good is coming. That one sentence can shift your entire vibration. It can turn bitterness into patience. It can dissolve anger and build resilience. And no, it doesn't magically fix everything overnight, but it prepares your heart to recognize the blessing when it finally arrives. Gratitude is not a cliché, it's a shield. When you speak thankfulness over your pain, you are not denying your suffering, you are elevating your spirit above it. You are saying, I acknowledge the storm, but I also acknowledge the one who controls the storm. And in that you step out of victimhood and into surrender. You stop being consumed by what's missing, and start noticing what's still standing. That shift in awareness is where miracles begin. You can't always control what happens to you, but you can absolutely control how you narrate it to yourself. You can fall and still say, I'm being taught something priceless. You can lose what you love and still say, there must be a higher purpose here. That's not delusion. That's faith in motion. That's spiritual intelligence. That's the kind of mindset that transforms misfortune into elevation. But none of this works if your inner voice is poisoned by comparison. The moment you look at someone else's life and start thinking, they have it easy, and behind you're inviting darkness into your narrative. Everyone is carrying something you don't see. You're comparing your behind the scenes to their highlight reel, and worst of all, you're turning your own journey into a punishment. Don't do that. Your timeline is sacred, your path is personal, you're not late, you're not cursed. You're being prepared in ways that only time will reveal. So start talking to yourself like someone you love. Stop rehearsing every painful memory. Stop echoing the voice of people who never understood your worth. And start whispering truth into your bones. Say things like, I'm not broken. I'm being built. I'm not forgotten. I'm being hidden for something better. I don't need all the answers. I just need to trust the next step. Let those be your new affirmations. When your mind becomes a prayer room, even your suffering starts to make sense. Even your delays feel divine. You begin to see how every pain had purpose, how every no was protection, how every failure was a teacher in disguise. That kind of mental discipline is rare, but it's possible, and it starts with catching the thought the moment it arises and asking, is this truth, or is this fear? If it's fear, let it go. If it's truth, let it guide you. Your healing is in the way you speak when no one's watching, in how you speak to yourself after the doors close, in how you remind your heart that it's still loved, still chosen, still seen. That inner dialogue, that's the foundation, and if you build it right, no storm will ever take you down again. There's a fine line between being tested and being sabotaged, and often we confuse the two. We experience a blockage, a delay, a loss, and we immediately label it as a divine test. We assume that every hardship comes from a higher wisdom trying to refine us, elevate us, and strengthen us. And yes, sometimes that's true. Sometimes life breaks you to rebuild you stronger. Sometimes you're being protected from something your heart desires but your soul cannot carry. But we must also be honest. Some of what we call divine tests are actually consequences of our own patterns. Not everything is a test from above. Some blockages are the results of our inaction, our fears, our lack of discipline, and our refusal to heal what needs to be healed. We keep asking, why am I stuck? But the real question should be, what have I been avoiding? Because let's be real, it's easy to blame fate. It's easy to point to the skies and say, this is just how life is. But it takes courage to point to yourself and say, maybe it's me, maybe I've been the one holding me back. Sometimes the door isn't closed by some external force. Sometimes you locked it yourself and forgot where you hid the key. You procrastinated. You stayed in places that drained you. You ignored red flags in people. You kept clinging to the familiar because it was comfortable, even if it was killing your spirit. You chose fear over action, and slowly that became your normal. Not because it was written for you, but because you wrote it with your own choices. There's nothing more dangerous than self-sabotage wrapped in a spiritual excuse. You'll tell yourself, maybe it's not meant to be, but deep down you know you didn't really try. You know you let fear silence your potential. You know you rejected opportunities because of self-doubt, not divine wisdom, and you'll convince yourself you're being tested, when in reality you're being offered a mirror. A chance to see how you've been standing in your own way. We often romanticize suffering. We think it's noble to struggle endlessly, waiting for a breakthrough. But not all struggle is sacred. Sometimes it's self-inflicted. Sometimes we're not being tested. We're just being reminded that ignoring responsibility has a cost. That neglecting our own healing delays our growth. That playing small eventually collapses our potential. Don't get me wrong. Real tests exist. They come uninvited. They hit you when you're doing everything right. You're praying, you're focused, you're aligned, and still life shakes you. That's a test. That's when you're being stretched by design. But when you've been distracted, unmotivated, bitter, ungrateful, passive, or stuck in cycles you refuse to break, what you're facing might not be a test. It might be a wake-up call, a nudge saying, it's time to grow up. It's time to clean your life up. It's time to take back your power. The problem is we've been conditioned to wait for miracles while ignoring the habits that block them. We sit in chaos and expect peace. We keep toxic people in our lives and wonder why we feel drained.
We run from the inner work, then complain about outer results. That's not divine testing. That's misalignment. That's resistance. That's choosing dysfunction and hoping it magically turns into destiny. Your life isn't going to fix itself. The patterns that caused the problem won't suddenly disappear without your effort. Healing is a decision. Growth is a decision. Discipline is a decision. And until you make those decisions, no amount of prayer or waiting will save you. You're not blocked because you're cursed. You're blocked because it's time to shift. It's time to let go of the excuses, the distractions, the laziness, the denial. It's time to become the person who is ready to receive what you've been asking for. If you're still holding on to pain from the past, heal it. If you're still chasing validation from people who couldn't love you, release it. If you're waiting for motivation to start, forget it. Act anyway. The universe responds to energy. It doesn't align with words. It aligns with action. You can talk about change all you want, but until you move differently, speak differently, think differently, nothing real will shift. That means taking full ownership. No more blaming timelines. No more comparing your journey to others. No more saying one day, while doing nothing today. Ask yourself, what are the habits keeping me blocked? What are the fears I haven't faced? What is the version of myself I keep avoiding? And then answer with action. That's the only way forward. Here's the truth. You deserve more, but only if you're willing to become more. You can't receive higher blessings with a lower mindset. You can't attract peace while entertaining chaos. You can't evolve while staying comfortable. Real progress demands real change, and that starts with being radically honest with yourself. Are you being tested, or are you just undisciplined? Are you blocked by life, or are you blocked by your own decisions? Are you truly waiting for divine timing, or are you using that as a crutch to avoid the discomfort of growth? These questions are heavy, but they're necessary, because the moment you answer them truthfully, is the moment you begin to take your power back. And when you do, something shifts. The same life that once felt stagnant begins to open up. Opportunities appear, not because they weren't there before, but because you finally became the version of yourself who could see and seize them. And you'll look back at all the misfortune and realize it wasn't misfortune at all. It was you, in need of clarity, in need of commitment, in need of transformation. So don't just pray for change, prepare for it. Don't just wait for doors to open, build the discipline to walk through them. And the next time life feels stuck, don't just assume it's a test. Ask yourself what needs to evolve within you, because maybe, just maybe, the blockage isn't divine resistance. It's divine mercy giving you one more chance to finally take responsibility and rise. Attraction is one of those mysteries that people try to hide, but it finds a way to reveal itself through the smallest, most unspoken signals. It's not always in the loud confessions or obvious compliments. It's in the silence, the subtle shift in energy, the delayed goodbye, the extra second their eyes linger. The truth is, people may lie with their words, but they can't lie with their energy. Attraction exposes itself, even when the person tries their hardest to stay composed. And if you pay close attention, you'll begin to recognize the signs that someone is drawn to you, without them ever saying a single word. The first sign is eye contact, not just looking but seeing. When someone is attracted to you, their eyes hold onto yours a little longer than usual. It's not forced, it's not creepy. It's quiet curiosity, it's connection without context. You'll catch them looking when you're not looking, then pretending to be distracted when you finally meet their gaze. Their eyes may look away, but they'll always return. It's instinctive, almost magnetic. In that look there's something raw, like their soul trying to speak before their mouth finds the courage. And sometimes, in a crowded room, you'll feel like there's no one else except for that look echoing between you. Then there's the mirroring, a psychological response that the body performs unconsciously. When someone is attracted to you, they start to reflect your movements. You cross your arms, they do the same. You lean forward, and they lean with you. It's not calculated, it's chemistry. It's the body's way of saying, I want to be in sync with you. Their tone may soften to match yours. Their expressions might echo yours. It's a dance neither of you planned, but one your subconscious initiates when closeness feels safe. Pay attention to these moments. They're not random, they're revealing. They tell you more than spoken words ever could. The third sign is that they always find a reason to stay, even when the conversation could have ended 5 minutes ago. They linger, they stall, they search for another question, another thought, another excuse to stay in your orbit. Time seems to bend around attraction. Minutes stretch, goodbyes become slow, and you'll notice how their body never fully turns away. They'll keep one shoulder angled toward you, one foot still pointing in your direction, as if some part of them isn't ready to disconnect. That's not politeness, that's longing. That's the gravitational pull between two people trying to act normal while everything inside them wants to stay just a little longer. And then comes the small gestures, the consistent ones, the ones that seem minor, but over time reveal a deep care. They remember little details you didn't even realize you shared. They check in when they don't have to. They send you something random because it reminded them of you. They support you in subtle ways, not for attention, not for reciprocation, but because they want to be part of your world, even in the smallest capacity. This kind of behavior isn't accidental. It's the heart leaking through the cracks of conversation. It's attraction expressed through attention, through presence, through consistency. But perhaps the most powerful proof of attraction is something you can't see. It's something you feel. Energy doesn't lie. It communicates without needing words. There's a shift in the air. When someone who's attracted to you walks into the room, you feel more awake, more alert. Your own energy responds without instruction. You find yourself smiling more, fixing your posture, feeling understood without needing to explain. That's not imagination. That's connection. Something inside you has recognized something inside them, and the soul responds before the mind can rationalize. Sometimes, the one who's attracted to you won't say it. They'll hide behind shyness or logic or fear, but their presence will always speak louder. Their effort will show in ways their mouth won't admit. You just have to stop listening for declarations and start watching for devotion. The truth is, attraction isn't about loud performances, it's about quiet consistency. It's not in grand gestures, it's in the way someone chooses to show up for you, again and again, even when they don't have to. And don't confuse attention for attraction. Anyone can look at you, anyone can flirt, but when someone is truly drawn to you, there's depth in the way they see you. They're not attracted to what you show the world. They're attracted to the moments when your guard slips, when your voice shakes, when your laugh is unfiltered, when your vulnerability shows. That's when their eyes light up the most, because real attraction isn't surface level, it's soul level. It doesn't crave the performance, it's captivated by the person behind it. So trust your intuition. You don't need constant validation to confirm what you already sense. You don't need someone to spell it out if everything in your body already knows the answer. The signs are there, if you know how to read them. The energy, the eyes, the patterns, they're always honest. And if you feel it, really feel it, chances are, it's real. But don't rush it, don't force it, just observe. Attraction that's real doesn't need pressure to grow. It flourishes in authenticity. It reveals itself slowly, steadily, without manipulation. So let it unfold naturally. Let it surprise you. Let it teach you that the most beautiful connections begin not with declarations, but with stillness, with presence, with the moments in between. Because the heart always knows, even when the mouth stays silent. And if you listen closely, not with your ears, but with your spirit, you'll know exactly who's drawn to you, even when they say nothing at all.